We all know one of the most common places in the world to go missing and never get found is the U.S. national park systems, especially those national parks that have boulder fields. Now, this is a common occurrence whether you're in a national park or whether you're on your own property, is disappearing unexpectedly with no trace in a boulder field. So the missing boulder field phenomenon was discussed pretty heavily in the Missing 411 documentary series. It is essentially where people go off the beaten path a little bit and then walk through an area that has large clumps of rocks, especially those that contain limestone or granite. We're talking about a bunch of the national parks and state parks in Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, the Carolinas, a lot of that Smoky Mountain, Appalachia area. Now, when you go out further west, Colorado sees a lot of boulder field missing people phenomenons. Now, what's so strange about this is, you could easily say they were climbing on the rocks and they fell and they hurt themselves. When they find these people's deceased bodies, it's most often in a boulder field that was heavily scoured before by search and rescue, and they weren't there. And when the bodies did get found, there's no clear trauma or reasons why these people should be dead. Weirdly enough, a lot of the signs of death when they do the autopsy is hypothermia, but the bodies will be found and have gone missing when it wasn't cold enough to reach hypothermia and the bodies weren't wet. So no one really knows why this is happening. Now, if you look at Appalachian folklore, going back to like Irish and Scottish folklore, they say that trolls and the fae tend to hide inside of rocks. They have a lot of stories of rock monsters. In fact, if you've ever seen Frozen, Anna gets found by the rock trolls, and they teach her magic there. Now, the rock trolls in Irish and Scottish folktales are not nice like the ones that you see in the Disney Frozen movies. They believe that there's what's called Fey realms. The Irish and Appalachia folklore tells you about Fey realms and how if you get whisked away to the Fey realms, that you'll never be able to return the same if you can return at all. Now, back to some realistic stuff of what could be going on in these boulder fields. It would be the perfect place for serial killers to hide because there's tons of room you can hide. You can, disguise yourself. You can drag people down in a hole. You can hide yourself in the hole. But the weird thing with true crime stuff is that these bodies and the area around them have almost no scent. And that's something they still can't explain today. Like when they bring out the hounds, there's like no scent trails coming from the bodies or to the bodies, meaning that the scent dogs don't pick up a trail of how that person even got there. And if somebody did something to them, how that person escaped and left. Weird thing that goes along with science with this too is when these people go missing and they're hiking around these boulder fields, there's random unexpected weather that no weatherman predicted. No one saw it on the radars. Just boom, it'd be like a severe thunderstorm or a flash flood, and then the person's missing. Now that could explain why they went missing in the first place. But then when they get found, weirdly enough, there's also those same severe unexpected storms, and it might be a week or months later, and then boom, all of a sudden the body was found. That goes back to the folklore of the Fey realms. Maybe that was the coming in and going out of those Fey realms and those portals. There's so many weird conspiracy theories about this, but what remains the same is that tons of people go missing in the national park systems with little to no explanations ever. Tons and tons of children, and this is really weird because the Fae supposedly love children or hate them based upon how you look at it. Tons of children talk about the fuzzy people that saved them while they were lost in the woods. And they don't mean fuzzy like they were hairy like a Bigfoot. They mean fuzzy like when you look at TV static. You hear tons of stories of kids that went missing and a blizzard happened and somehow they walked on foot 4 miles, and they're only 5 years old. And one kid did it without shoes on but didn't have frostbite. These are real accounts you could actually look up of kids that were found. And they talk about how they got assisted by these people and these things and these creatures. And it gives me chills out here in the dark talking about this. I'm under a street light that we have, but it just makes you wonder what's going on out there in the world and these boulder fields and all the mystery around them. One of the most common places for children and experienced hikers to go missing at is the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It spreads from Tennessee to North Carolina, but it's connected to the Appalachian Mountains, which cover a much more vast area. If you take a map of the people that have gone missing in the U.S. national parks and take a same map of the cave systems that have been marked in the United States, they overlap perfectly. Now, I'm not saying the movie The Descent is real, but they might be onto something. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains about an hour and a half away from the movie The Descent was filmed, and I can vouch for how many caves are just unmarked and unknown, and how many major cave systems have these little outlets that no one's ever seen before. Growing up, it was pretty common knowledge that there was actually a criminal that had been caught after hiding out in these caves for years, just a little bit away from where I lived at. And it makes you wonder what else might be using those cave systems, whether that be serial killers or straight up creatures from the Descent movie. Now, when I say creatures, I don't legitimately mean creatures. If you guys haven't heard about the feral people that are in the North American national park systems, it's a pretty wild thing to look up. It's pretty common knowledge that there are feral people who live deep, deep, deep within the national park systems, and they oftentimes come across campers or hikers. If you didn't know that there is no known database for people that are gone missing in the U.S. National Park System, it's because there isn't one. There is no collective data center taking notes of who has gone missing in national parks and working with each other or law enforcement to try to figure these things out. If you haven't seen David Paulides and the Missing 411, it takes dang near an act of Congress to get these records unsealed. So to me, I'm wondering, what are they trying to protect, or what facts are they trying not to get released to the public? It's not a shock to me that these missing people that are never found and the cave system kind of line up together, because I would imagine if you're curious like I am and adventurous like I am, you find a little cave and you want to go explore it, and the next thing you know, you're stuck in it, or you're, turned around, or you're lost completely. But more than likely, you would just get stuck. It is an insane amount of people that have been stuck in caves before, and what's really sick is you actually won't decompose. There's actually several cave systems in the world that are named after the people that are still stuck in them, and you can actually still see their, dang near perfectly preserved body still stuck in there. Like the Cave of Green Boots. And that just might be why the Great Smoky Mountains is one of the highest places for people to go missing, to never be found. Like, no one ever finds a trace of you. And a lot of these cave systems are on giant limestone deposits. And if you guys don't know what about limestone deposits, they're natural deodorizers, which means if you go missing in those areas, they can't even use sniffing dogs to find you, because odor doesn't stick to limestone the way it does other material. Now, besides feral people, there's actually a lot of speculation that these cave systems are used by criminals. There's actually a TV show about a national park system, I think it's called Yosemite, where essentially they do find a whole criminal organization that is using cave systems to make drugs and distribute them from there. And that is a good point. Could it be one extreme of feral people? Could it be criminals using these caves and people stumble across these caves and they get taken out? It could be a mixture of both. Okay, but if you want to listen to some really creepy stories from actual park rangers, you can actually look them up about their interactions and their sightings of feral people. And when they describe these feral people, a lot of these park rangers actually believe these feral people are what people are mistaken as Bigfoot. He said these people just don't even look human-like anymore. He said most of the men are extremely hairy. They speak a very broken English, in some cases a complete different dialect that they've made up amongst themselves, kind of like the movie Wrong Turn or Hills Have Eyes. A lot of times they're disfigured from large amounts of inbreeding. There was even a Kentucky Blue family, if you want to look that up. That is not a conspiracy. You can actually see real photos of those people. They were on the news, they got introduced into civilization. There's just so much stuff out there that's so strange about this world. And these national parks is just the tip of the iceberg of all the weird, strange activity. And why are there even laws where they keep this stuff kind of privatized to themselves? Are they just terrified people will stop going to the national parks? And then at the end of the day, what's so important about people going to the national parks? If they're scared people aren't going to come, why are they scared of that? It's not like national parks are big money-making machines. So I don't know, just throwing it out there. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Hope you enjoyed this creepy segment. I'm trying to branch out a little bit into this field. If you like stories like these and want to support the page, give us a follow, give us a like. I'd love to see you here again. And until next time, this has been Matt with Nomads. You want to know where the worst place you could ever go missing in the entire world is? It's the U.S. national parks. That's right, the national parks all across the United States. You want to know why? It's because there's no national registry that keeps track of the people who go missing. There is no active system that follows up on those missing people. You don't believe me? Go ahead and look it up. See how many people have gone missing in the national parks. There's no answer because there's no database that collects that information. There never has been and there never will be. If you guys haven't done some digging and looking on the Missing 411 documentaries, it's about a retired U.S. Marshal that is trying to make a collective list, and the U.S. Park Service does not want to hand that information over. You have to get court subpoenas to even look into missing people in national parks. If you go missing in a national park, it's almost guaranteed they are not going to find you. So for serial killers, it is the perfect hunting ground because they know that their MOs probably won't get recognized as long as they just keep hopping to different national parks, because there's no database matching these patterns at all. It is the most insane thing I've ever heard of, and why they're wanting to gatekeep it so hard, no one actually knows. Because a national park, if it's in such and such county, that county's jurisdiction goes out the window when it comes to the National Park Service. It is a whole different, branch. It's its own thing. It's its own entity. And they do not play well with others. There are 30-year-old cold cases where bodies have never been found, and they still will not let new investigators reopen these cases and look further into it. Why? Now, there's tons of theories out there bouncing all over the place that maybe the government's abducting people, or maybe it's containment theory, which is the theory that they think that there is some kind of creature or natural phenomenon there, like wormholes or anything else. And they make the national parks in those areas to just limit the amount of people who might come in contact with those things, but that's just a wild stretch of a theory. The one about the government abducting people in those places really does have me sketched out, because some of these people who have gone missing and the stories their family and friends tell say, yeah, they were there 1 second, we looked away, we looked back, and they were gone. Some of these stories are just insane. Oftentimes, later on, their clothes will be found in the exact same spot that searchers have searched a million times before, or their items will be found, neatly stacked up. There was one case where the bones were stacked up in a pyramid shape in an area that the searchers had searched a million times over. Oftentimes, when the bodies are recovered, they're found in impossible to get to places, or places that have been thoroughly searched many times. And there's almost never any sign of why they passed away. There is some really creepy ones too, if you guys want to go down the rabbit hole, of some little children who have gone missing and then are found a week later, and they've lived through an impossible snowstorm or traveled an impossible distance. And they talk about how the fuzzy people saved them. And I don't mean fuzzy like they're hairy. I mean, they describe them as fuzzy like when you see TV static. That literally gave me chills talking about it just now. Oh God, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere by myself. I would say stay safe and always go to the national parks with a friend or a buddy, but apparently that doesn't matter. Many of these cases, the people are in well-traveled trails and in populated areas, and it's just bloop, they're gone, and no one ever sees them or hears from them quite literally ever again. Growing up in Appalachia, we were always heavily warned to not attract the attention of a haint. If y'all don't know what a haint is, it's pretty much a malevolent, free-roaming spirit that is not tied to any one place, but maybe a general area, unlike a residual ghost that would just haunt a house or something. The American South was full of haints and malevolent spirits because of all the tragedy that has happened in the American South, especially around the Appalachia area. You know, we had things like slavery, we had the Trail of Tears, we had many of battles of the Civil War fought around that area. So all of this bloodshed and tragedy in such a very short amount of time would be the perfect breeding ground for a haint, malevolent spirit. Some ways you could attract them to yourself is by having an exceptionally negative and bad attitude. It could also be that you're talking to yourself at night or whistling at night outside, something you're never supposed to do. You know, we used to always get warned to not attract these things to us because they can't bother you if you're not showing them attention back. So, for example, one time we all heard this noise, and me and my cousins, look at where the noise came from, and our grandpa's in the room, and we're like, oh, did you hear that? And he said, nope. Even though he had looked when he heard the noise too, he didn't want to claim that he had heard the noise or heard that spirit, because if they can't get you to acknowledge them and give them power, they can't really interact with you much further. So they're looking for that fear or that surprise or whatever that emotion is. It's something they don't have and they can't feel anymore. These things go back, hundreds of years. They go back into Native American, folk tales and myths and legends that have been passed down. But in Appalachia, it's just very well known that if you're outside at night, you keep to yourself, you don't talk to yourself, you don't whistle, you don't do anything to attract any attention to yourself after nightfall. And the reason why you might hear or see about these things more in Appalachia than almost anywhere else in the United States is because there's a huge belief that all of our electronic devices and power lines and things like that interfere with the ability for them to manifest themselves. So the less electronic devices or interferences, the easier they can manifest themselves. Imagine them being like a radio wave. Okay, if there's a lot of interference, that radio wave can't come through clear, but when there's no interference, they come through clear as a bell. Okay, so a lot of old timers will tell you, you don't see as much supernatural and paranormal things anymore because of all of the devices around you. Everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket at all times. That's why there's this whole big, mystery of why don't you catch these things on camera very often. And it's because when they sense electronic fields, they can't manifest. It literally blocks them from doing so. So the belief is if you're out in the middle of the woods with nothing with you, you are way more likely to have experiences, just because they can draw upon your life force instead of getting blocked from the electronic devices. Now, you know that I have a background in biology, and we know that's true in animals. For example, the number one way to repel a shark is to have a lot of electronic devices. It actually messes with their senses, and they will purposely avoid electronic devices very often. So it's very common knowledge. In fact, if you guys look at shark repellent magnets, you just stick a little magnet in your dive suit, and it will literally repel them. They don't want to be around you. We're going to talk about the spook lights, or what's also known as the ghost lights of Appalachia. Now, I have witnessed these things all across the country, not just there, just that area is known for them. And what this is just a light without a source, almost like a flashlight without a holder, okay? And they can appear in a few different ways. They can appear like literally a ball of light. They can appear to look like a flashlight, or they can appear as a light on a wall, but it doesn't give off any light, if that makes any sense, and I'll get to that in a minute. My personal experience, I shared a big video about this of I was hunting one time and it wasn't quite daylight yet, and it looked like there was a man with a flashlight or somebody with a flashlight in this one spot, and I watched it until daylight came, and when daylight came, that spot was over a cliff, and if I would have followed that light, I would have fallen off these rocks. And that's kind of one of the stories with the ghost light, is it's like almost like they're trying to lead you towards your own demise or lead you to get lost. There's a lot of theories that's why a lot of children go missing in the woods, is they're following these lights, and the next thing they know, they're lost and they don't know where they're at. I'm going to tell you my dad's story with his ghost light, and this one's odd because it happens inside with a witness. Most ghost lights are seen alone. So my dad and my grandpa, this was back when my dad was younger, and him and his dad were watching a college basketball game one night, and they had all the lights off in the house. They just had the TV on. Well, the wall next to the TV, a perfect circle light just poof, right there on the wall, and it was flat surface, on the wall there. Now, my dad is sitting behind my grandpa, who was sitting in a recliner. My dad's sitting over on the couch, and apparently they both watched this light for like 10 to 15 seconds, and it kind of moved a little bit, not sporadic, not crazy, just kind of gradually moved around on this wall. But there was no source, there was no beam of light leading to it. It didn't shine or seem to reflect anything. It didn't glow or give off any light of its own. They said it was completely silent. And all of a sudden it just went away. It didn't fade out. It didn't, get smaller. It was gone, just like it had came. And my dad said, "Daddy, did you see that?" And apparently my grandpa jumped out of the recliner, and he goes, "You mean you saw that too? I thought I was going crazy. I thought I had one too many drinks." And they both were so bothered by it that they tried to recreate how this light could have happened all night long. They got in their car, they drove by and made sure it wasn't like a headlight that could have gone through a window. They tried turning a flashlight on, because then they thought, what if there's an intruder in this house and that was some kind of flashlight? They tried every way under the sun, apparently, for the next few hours to try to recreate that, and they could not figure out how to recreate that light anywhere. Dad said nowhere even remotely the same as this. And over the years, I've been told that story a million times by my grandpa and by my dad, and that story has never changed. Like, it is, I fully believe they saw something on that wall, and I know what I saw when I was hunting. Would love to hear if you guys have any spook light stories of your own or ghost light stories of your own. We do a podcast now. It's called Matt from Nomads. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. Go follow us over there. We're trying to add stories there every day. I hope you have a good time with it. Thank you all so much for all the support on these spooky, scary stories, and we'll keep them coming.